Hello and welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this now moment with myself and one another and my little buddy back there. Welcome if you haven't seen these videos before. Welcome back if you have. My intention with all of these videos is just to share the energies that I use for raising frequency and vibration and just connecting with one another and raising the frequencies on Mother Earth. And I'm going to go into a little bit of flow. So I just want to back up and, kind of explain a little bit, a couple of things. So I'll just start with, I am just in gratitude and awe of how many beautiful light workers have come to find me in the last week. But ever since I started doing this YouTube channel, before that too, because obviously I've done Reiki and I'm an energy healer, so to speak, and I've worked with people for years. But it's interesting because I've never worked in this particular style. Sorry, I know my camera's a little crooked, but meaning when I did work with other beautiful beings, it was primarily more of an energy-based focus, very much of a Reiki style. And then when I was guided to get onto YouTube and just start sharing what it is that I do, because other people, the message was it needs to get out there. It's like a vortex and it draws those same like-minded people to you. Not always. Of course, there are those that are naysayers and that's their own cup of tea, and there's no judgment about any of this because what I'm learning is we all have our gift and it's always continually shifting. So what I want to start out is just by explaining a little bit from a logical perspective. I want to talk a little bit about light language, just about what it is. I've talked about this before, and what it is that I do, because a lot of people tune into my videos and they don't know what I'm doing, but it feels good. And I'm just going to start by saying that's what it's all about. It isn't about exactly what I'm doing, because my style is, you've heard me say, a jack of many trades. I've been many things, I am many things, as we all are, and I'm just tapping into multidimensional aspects of myself and other beings that are using me as a channel, and essentially bringing forth those energies. Now, if I'm speaking in light language and we're just having a conversation, that's just it. I call it light language, but it's really ancestral language. It's not like and that's just one version of the many that I tap into. Some of them are languages that I've spoken or am speaking in a future or past version of myself. I'm going multidimensional here, guys. I'm just rolling right into it. The other versions might be channeled from other beings who wish to share, that I connect with for benevolence for all and from my heart. The reason I'm bringing this up is it's a natural language for many of us. So sometimes people tune into this channel or other people that speak light language and they don't understand why they feel so good or they have emotions come through. So first I want to say that it's a conversational piece. If you're tuning in and you understand what I'm saying, it's because you speak that language or you have spoken it or will be speaking it. Another variation is maybe I'm channeling it from another being, another energy, so to speak. And that might be a little higher vibrational frequency that is pulling through certain light codes. And that's more of a true light language, meaning think of casting a spell for those of you witches out there. You say certain words or think of it as an affirmation. And those words come through in a harmonious way that triggers certain feelings, responses, chemicals in the body to respond. That's another version of this. So while English, and I'm going to use that as an example, let's say you're speaking English and you hear somebody speak Italian and you just go, oh, that just feels so good. I love the way that sounds. That's one version of what you're hearing when you listen to people like myself speaking light language. It's like, wow, it just feels good. The other version is that oftentimes because of the way that I'm speaking it, I'm speaking from the heart and saying things or words that are meant to activate certain memories, frequencies. So just like in the English language, if someone says, I love you, it sounds good and it feels good versus someone that says, I don't like you, right? They're the same language, but there's a different vibration behind the specific words that I might be saying. So that's the basic version of, we'll call it ancestral language, right? Ancestral, our ancestors spoke it, ancestors spoke it, speak it, are speaking it, whatever, however you want to look at it. So sometimes the words that are coming through are basically Native American of nature, or Lemurian, or Atlantean, or whatever it might be, all right, Hathor. It's not like the words are some type of magic, but in essence, that's like saying the words I love you aren't magic, but they are, because you know what happens based on what things look like in response to vibration. So the word love holds a frequency. I talk about Mr. Masaru Emoto and the water experiments all the time. You can look up anything about water and vibration and look at the beautiful shapes that are harmonized from a frequency that is felt in water. So I'm comparing the two for a very linear aspect of what is this light language. And I also, so that's the first layer. English, Lemurian. All right. The other version is that while Lemurians spoke, they were in a higher vibrational dimension, perhaps when they existed or when they are existing. There's no past, present, or future, so I'm just going to say now. And maybe perhaps they're existing from a fifth dimensional harmony. So when we speak in Lemurian, for example, it might make us feel better because those languages were based off of a harmonious representation of that space in time or that space in the field, right? So that's another interpretation of what's happening and why we feel a certain way when we hear certain languages. Now, to bounce off of those two representations, again, if you're speaking English and you're saying things with love and from the heart, people feel that. So you could still be using those language, and I could, but I don't. So I'm gonna, without getting too sidetracked here, they're trying to keep me in point. They, my higher guides, my higher self, our friends that help us out. So from one aspect, now you're speaking or hearing Lemurian. I'm using that as an example. And the words that are used in Lemurian are coming from a heart-based environment. Therefore, the language is spoken in a heart-based frequency. Therefore, it feels different. And even though you're speaking back and forth in English, right, that might be different if you're speaking an ancestral tone or language that is associated with perhaps a lower frequency dynamic. And while this is true to some extent, you can still feel good when you hear it because it elicits certain memories that you have with being home. Meaning, if it's another planet or another star system, you're like, oh, that just feels so good. I feel like it's home. On the flip side of that, it could be an ancient Sumerian or language, or let's say Native American. I say Native American very loosely, Indian, whatever, ancestral tone, Hawaiian, whatever. And you might hear it and go, wow, because it holds pieces of your memory of living that lifetime, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to go through all aspects here of why light language or ancestral toning sounds and feels so good for some people. Other times it doesn't feel like much because it's just like me talking to you right now. Although when I speak and my intention comes through, I'm going to give an example. If you guys know of Lisa Transcendence Brown, or you've listened to Daniel Scranton channel The Arcturians. So if you're sensitive to this, or even if you're not, and you listen to someone who's in a higher vibration, when they share this information with you, it feels good. You just feel good listening to them. Matt Kahn, if you vibe with whatever he's sharing in how he's sharing it in the moment that he's sharing it. I'm going to use Lisa Transcendence Brown. I listen to her. I love her. She's just sometimes I'm not, if I'm a lower frequency, I can't listen to her because she's so high vibe that I'm just like, all right. Same thing with other teachers. You guys know what I'm talking about, I think. I feel, I hope. So for example, she just popped on. I thought I haven't heard anything from her in a while. And I'm going to tune in. And she didn't have anything to share that I didn't already know. But about 10 minutes into it, or maybe sooner, I was just like, oh, yeah, that's what she's sharing. Thank you, Lisa Transcendence Brown. Because I was doing stuff around the house and I was like, I feel so good. Tuning in to her vibration in English. She doesn't have to speak Lemurian. She's tapping into the Lemurian frequencies that are high vibration, that are bringing those codes into your body, your skin suit, your water, your architecture, the Ethernet, the internet, the sharing, because energy doesn't have a boundary. Does this make sense? Kind of what I'm trying to just going in flow here. And so there are those beings out there that speak light language, ancestral tones, and it's just a conversation with who you speak or spoke. It's in your cells, it's in your memory, it's in your complex. It's our original language. English is a conglomeration of all these other things that's now English. I'm using that as an example. Some beautiful light worker asked on this channel a while back, and I apologize because I don't remember names always, or it doesn't always come through because it's just the URL or the domain that you guys use. But they asked, well, they're asking about Sanskrit because that's their home language is Sanskrit. And isn't that a form of light language? And all language is a form of light, encodements in form, spoken form. So yes, Sanskrit, from my perspective, is truer to a foundational base of the origination of language itself. And it hasn't been watered down and changed and shifted and reconstructed to basically be more limiting. And that's a whole other video, and I'm not trying to go lower vibration here because that's not what this intention is. But I think perhaps maybe you're understanding, hopefully, where I'm coming from with this light language. So it can just be a conversation, right? So that's several different layers I'm presenting here. So any language can be used as light if you're intending for it to be so. And if you're tapping into the higher dimensional frequency behind the words, reading in between the lines, right? Written art, it's just like if you look at a piece of artwork and it's drawn, and the artwork behind it is the artist was conveying sadness. And let's say the picture doesn't have, it's abstract, but you can feel the emotion if you're sensitive to that tapestry, so to speak. That's a form of light language. Now, for the purposes of what most people respond to with light language, it's old ancient texts. It's Sumerian, it's Lemurian, it's Atlantean, it's Hathor, it's Egyptian, it's Syrian, right? Some of you beautiful light workers out there speak those codes. It's all kinds of different beautiful languages. And because they're from a higher knowing, they can elicit a certain response within the emotional field, as well as mental, as well as field, because it's around us and it's within us. Now, I'm just kind of moving into kind of what I do and what other people out there do. Some people just speak light language. They speak Sumerian that's pre what we know and understand, even now in Sumeria. It's ancient. They speak the ancient tones and languages. I do that as well. Some people channel those frequencies, energies, and languages and tones. I also do that, as many people do. Some people are tapping into a galactic expression of who they are, and they're speaking those languages. I do that as well. Some people are channeling those. I do that as well. And many of you guys do too. Now, beyond that, my interpretation is that I am now as you tap into these versions of yourself, or so to speak, or as a channeler, if you listen to, for example, Daniel Scranton. I use Lisa Transcendence Brown as an example, but I'm going to use Daniel Scranton as an example. And let's say he's channeling the Arcturians. He's not speaking Arcturian, but he is, because essentially they're speaking through him as a channel. And when you listen to that, you're tuning in to an Arcturian frequency vibration in English. So that's how those words can still have an impact on your emotions and feelings. And if you really just quiet the mind and branch out and ask to connect with that frequency when he channels, you can feel the Arcturian light language coming through in an English format. Does that make sense? So it can be Arcturian in speech, but it can be felt as well. So also movements. So I'm going to use light language in the form of shapes and art. Now I'm not in that. I'm not going to say I'm not. I haven't really tried to draw. I call them hieroglyphs or Lemurian code, or that's just not where I'm at right now. Maybe that will evolve for me if that's something that I choose to pull into my field, but so far it's not something that I'm necessarily. Anyways, others out there do. Some of you, I've worked with beautiful artists who actually draw light language. So that is also, you can look at it as just a form of communication, and it's nothing fancy. It just is. It's like if you were half Egyptian and you were alive and you went to the pyramids, you go, oh yeah, that means the man sat under the rock and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So it's just stuff coming through, like reminding you, hey, you can do this. This is your original way that this language was written in this format. If I look at Chinese writing or Japanese, it's beautiful to me. I don't understand it on a third dimensional linear perspective. But then as a Reiki master, they attune you to those symbols and they take on a whole different meaning. So you might be attuned to the Reiki symbols, which mean water or power, right? But by combining the intention behind the words, reading between the lines, and then putting them into a form of language in the form of light that can be written on paper, spoken out loud in Japanese or in English or in the mind or on, in formation in the air, aether, which connects with the field that we're existing in, the matrix, right? So I want you guys to kind of see how this pulls it all in. Maybe I'll draw a diagram on the whiteboard someday and kind of revamp this. But I was just kind of inspired to go into this a little bit because it's different for every individual, but we all have these gifts. So when I perform a certain energy, and when I say perform, it's like, it looks like I'm doing all this stuff. I'm just tapping into a higher vibrational, from my perspective, aspect of me. So I'm tapping into my Lemurian vibration, my Lyran energy, my ancestral native heritage, which is pulling in from Aboriginal. I could go on and on. It's really very multidimensional, but it comes through in tones. That's also what, if you do yoga, that's what you're doing. That's what when you speak a yoga pose and you say the yoga pose name in Sanskrit, it's got a purer frequency, perhaps, than when you say it in English from one perspective. And from another perspective, that's not true, but it is true. So if you say it also has a representation perhaps of a deity, or we'll say a form frequency picture in your mind of what that pose represents in vibration. It's a vibrational thing. So English, as beautiful as it can be very watered down and limiting in the visualization and the frequency behind it. So that's why these codes, pictures, art, language, tones, frequencies have a certain impacts on certain people in certain ways. Sometimes it feels completely different than at other times. Sometimes we're channeling that from a higher dimensional perspective, and sometimes we're remembering it and speaking it from our own imprint, holographic experience, etc. And all of this is a different perspective as to what's going on. For me, that's encompasses a little bit what I do, and other people out there too. Other people might do it by doing Reiki, but they do it from a Lemurian system. Okay. Other people work with crystals and they pull through that energy and they use the crystals to then create a field of energy based on that person's intention and their connection through their crystalline experiences as a crystal or living on a crystal planet or connecting with the crystals in inner earth that they can feel. Some people do it with color. Everybody has a unique expression of how to pull these through to assist one another in what we're experiencing. Now, for me, I also connect with more of a quantum field. It's more of portals and timelines and a little bit more of that Syrian flavor from one perspective. And that's going to be different. You might have another Syrian light worker out there that connects with completely different codes. That's all our own journey. It's not a box to put things in. So I'm just trying to give you a very expansive. People can speak light language and it doesn't have to be this emotional, that's how I choose to express it. It could just be, like, so, but when I speak it, I feel it makes me feel a certain frequency, and then I can connect more fully with certain codes and spins and pulling in certain energies, and I can see in people's fields imbalances, and I can pull them and rewire with permission from that person's oversoul for allowing me to share my gift with that individual person or multifaceted individual. Perhaps I'm connecting with the Syrian aspect of you or the Lemurian aspect of you that says, hey, we want to connect and pull these energies in, and this version of yourself might be having a little blockage in that area. And so we're working together. I feel that's just from one perspective. And there's so much more. There's more that I do that I don't even understand on a linear scale. I just roll with it, set my intention for the highest levels of love light, and see what comes through. Sometimes it's messages in English that are heart-based, right? So they pull through different frequencies and energies to make and to assist other people in seeing more of who they are. So I hope that gives you a little just an idea of what, from my perspective, of what light language does, how it works. And this is a very basic, I could probably do a whole hour video on it. And there's a lot of different people out there that have their own perspectives, and they're all awesome. So as I come across these, I will add them to my list of videos and subscriptions and things like that so that you guys can see what I have linked into to kind of explore your own. I like to go in and bring a little science into it and a little quantum physics into it and a little esoteric and angelic, and so that whoever is linking into these videos, we're not all on the same journey and path, even though I keep talking about oneness, we're all doing it in our unique individual expression. Some people are more science-based and they want to go into Nassim and physics and quantum physics, and other people are like, oh, I just want to talk to the angels, and so I'll try to share those with you guys. But you guys, this is just a quick Carrie interpretation, keep it simple, Starseeds expression of light language. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it and maybe shed some light on why you feel certain ways when you listen to certain people, and when you listen to certain tones, and when you see certain pieces of artwork. Oh, and last but not least, before I forget, it can also be in writing. So when I say writing, for example, there's some beautiful light workers out there. I think Sandra Walter, I apologize. I don't know if it's Walter or Walters. Again, Elise Transcendence Brown, many different light workers out there that light encode their writing. Mine is somewhat like that as well on my blog. That's a whole other explanation, but there's different ways of light encoding that. And so if someone is channeling the information, I think Bringers of Dawn was a very great Pleiadian book. I read that a while ago, and as I read it, I just was like, boom, 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 activate, activate, activate. Carrie, he just popped into my head, Carey. I think he wrote some stuff in like the 80s, Starseed Transmissions or something. I read him a long time ago. I don't remember exactly what he wrote about, but whoa, right? I was really, so what happens is we read these things and the light language is written behind, again, it's reading between the lines from one perspective. If you guys have read the book Anastasia, whether it's real or not real is, from my perspective, irrelevant. Some people go, no, it's relevant. It's real. Other people go, it's not real. I don't believe it. That's not what I'm trying to base. I'm not trying to get into a conversation about whether it's real or not real. How the book makes you feel is what's real. Because if you read it and you feel a certain way from it, then that becomes your reality. So for me, that book was written as a light encoded expression to make you change your feelings around vibration, thought process patterns. And there are many books out there. If you read a book about Lemuria and it triggers certain memories, I can touch my hand on a book about ancient Egypt sometimes if I'm meant to feel that energy, close my eyes. And like Edgar Casey, I'm not comparing, I love Edgar. He was that was his gift, right? He could fall asleep on a book and memorize the whole book. It's not exactly how I process it. I'd love to do that. And of course, I'm sure we all have that ability, right? They're saying, of course, my team. But I can download information if that's something I meant to, in that moment, feel. And my eyes will start wiggling and I just feel this energy move through my body. I don't always know what it is and I don't try to figure it out anymore. I just say, thank you. And when it's supposed to come to me, if it's supposed to come to me, then I roll with it. But my point is, everything holds a frequency. So if you're reading a book and you feel inspired, it's because either A, the writer was inspired when they wrote it, B, the information was channeled and it was coming from a higher dimensional energy and source, or both, like Harry Potter, right? C, the images inspire or elicit certain responses in your alchemical container in your body. B, the style and the writing of the words or the alignment of the words, if they're written in circles, perhaps your eyes are picking up different things and reading it that way. C, the symbols represent certain things that make you feel a certain way because they're pulling through that frequency in space, much like the symbols of Reiki, okay, or ancient texts, hieroglyphics, language and the hieroglyphs. Anyways, or the way that the words are combined elicit certain, so you can see where I'm going with this, that it's really all light or shadow, depending on what that writer, artist, speaker is trying to bring through, or not trying, just allowing to come through, and in their own style. So my style of writing is different than perhaps someone else, but I'm bringing through my own feelings of light and my own way of activating, so to speak, other people, beings, to their potential or to seeing these things. So when I read something from Sandra Walters or Elise Transcendence Brown, which I haven't really done lately, but I was all about it. So if you guys haven't checked them out, I encourage you to do that. If you're into the galactic flavor or not, they're just beautiful. I would see certain things, or I would say, oh, I know that's exactly what I was seeing 2 days ago, or whatever it might be. Everybody sees something different when I speak through these channels because we're all tuning into something, a different aspect of us. I don't really, so the writing. So that's what sometimes one version of light encoded means, or magenta pixie. If you guys read magenta pixie, same idea. It's light language in writing, but it's not necessarily going to be the same light language as my writing. It's different. It works in a different way, but it's all coming from that same idea, or frequency in a different flavor, so to speak. So in love and light, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and hope you enjoyed this Kiss Keep It Simple Starseed video about light language and light and communication, right? In love and light, guys. Namaste.